welcome to another wonderful lesson. Today is lesson 17, and we want to dive into the world of automation with Python. Automation with Python. After this lesson, we will learn what automation means and how to automate tasks in Python. We'll learn what kind of tasks you can automate in Python, and we will go through a number of projects. Maybe we'll continue next week with another project on automation so that we build solid understanding in this particular field. And when it comes to automation, depending on the type of automation you are doing, you will need certain libraries. And so for each automation project we choose, we will introduce certain Python libraries. And we learned previously that because of the libraries that Python supports, you can expand the capabilities of Python. And Python has a lot of libraries that makes it useful in almost every field and for so many tasks and activities. And so as we work on these projects, we will be introducing libraries, and we'll be talking about projects such as automatically renaming thousands and tens of thousands of files through Python code. So sometimes if you have a lot of files to rename, instead of doing it manually, we can let Python do it for us. Sometimes you go for a program and you take a lot of pictures and pictures and pictures, and the pictures have certain file names like img123, img246, img so and so, but you want to rename it well. You can let Python go through all the files and rename for you. If you have certain events, you can let Python remind you. You can let Python perform certain tasks at certain dates, certain times, certain specific moments that you assign, and also repetitive tasks that will continue like every day at 9 o'clock, every week on so and so day, or every 30 minutes today, depending on the time you set. Python can do all of that. We can also use automation to go ahead and send multiple emails through Python. You can let Python send multiple emails for you and customize the emails and send it to multiple people, better than what you can even do with your email client. And so we can use Python for so many things, and we can also use Python for automating data processing and data analysis tasks. And so we'll pick some of these projects and we are going to work on it. And this is really going to enhance your knowledge and your understanding in Python programming. So as we get into the lesson, let's prepare to advance ourselves. And as we do these things, we upgrade our understanding and we get used to Python more and more, and we know how to use Python for multiple tasks and what our career demands. Before we get into the details of this lesson, I want to tell you that push yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. This is my motivational message to you. It says, push yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. Push yourself. Push yourself. This is a mentality you need to have. This is a mindset you need to have. Yes, because you are responsible for your success. You are responsible for your progress. And so push yourself. Push yourself. Push yourself. There are dreams that you have. There are goals that you have. There are careers that you have. What you want to do and what you are called to do, you have to understand that you need to push yourself. You need to push yourself because no one else is going to do it for you. Those who understand these things, they are the ones who succeed. Those who have understood this and actually do it, they are the ones who make it. And so for us to make it, we need to understand that we need to have the right attitude. We need to push ourselves. We need to push ourselves and not to wait for someone to do it, because no one else is going to do it for you. Sometimes you want to blame your parents for not doing some things for you. Sometimes you want to blame someone else for what didn't work. Sometimes you want to blame the government for how your life is. Sometimes you want to blame, you can keep blaming and blaming and blaming, but no one else is going to do it for you. So push yourself. I want you to understand it. Push yourself, push yourself. You know, it was said that when Paul, let me talk Bible for a minute. When Paul the apostle came on the scene, he was the last to come to join the apostles, but he was the one who did the greatest work. He was the one who wrote two-thirds of the New Testament. He was last to come, but the work he did and what he achieved was greater than all the apostles who were before him, who were even with Jesus Christ. He wasn't even with Jesus Christ, but because of the attitude he had, he achieved more. If you read about his texts in Philippians, he said, I press towards the mark of the highest calling. All right. He says that he doesn't count all his achievements, but every day he pushes himself forward. Every day he shared his mindset. He has some determination, and I think that determination I'm seeing in some of you. He has this determination because of the goal, because of that vision, that future. Every day when he wakes up, he forgets about the past and he pushes himself forward every day for the price of the highest calling. And that is why his results were so tremendous. And that is why you are also going to make it. So push yourself, push yourself. Don't blame people. Don't blame people. Your life is you versus the world. There are a lot of challenges in the world. There are a lot of challenges in life. If you want to blame, you blame everyone, you blame everything. But you have to understand that those challenges are there to test your resilience. And all the challenges in life, you are supposed to overcome them and win, because it is you versus the world. You versus the world. Yes, so I want you to push yourself. So someone should put in the chat, push yourself, push yourself, push yourself. All right, so push yourself. I am pushing myself each and every day, working each and every day, day and night working. I'm working to fulfill my calling and to do what I'm called to do. So push yourself, push yourself, push yourself. Thank you all. Push yourself. All right. And today's lesson is automation with Python. It says that perform repetitive tasks automatically. You know, we can use Python to do so many things, and automation is so powerful. It's one way we can practically apply our Python skills to make life easier, whether you are a developer or not, whether you're a data scientist or not, whether you are in tech or not, you can use Python to automate so many things. You can use Python to analyze Excel files. You can use Python to perform data cleaning. You can use Python to input files in Excel, in CSV, in documents for you. You can create files using Python. So there are a lot of tasks that we can do using Python. And so to begin, I want to ask a simple question, that what is automation? What is automation? So who can tell me what automation is? So let's build a foundation, and today we'll pick one project In our next lesson, we will pick another project and we will see how Python can be used to schedule events. And we can also see how Python can be used to automatically send emails for us. And so we'll test it in class and we'll see how our Python code can send emails. So what is automation? Let me get an input from someone. What is automation? What is automation? What is automation? When you hear automation, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind when you hear automation? Welcome, Timothy. Timothy, we are waiting for you. We are waiting for you, Timothy. We are waiting for you. All right. So someone said using scripts to perform repetitive tasks. Thank you, Mike. That is wonderful. That is wonderful. So automation refers to the use of scripts, programs, or tools to perform repetitive tasks automatically with minimal or no human intervention. All right. Timothy says, I'm coming. We are waiting for you, Timothy. All right. So when we say automation, this is what we mean. And it's important to understand that Python is a tool that we can use to do automation. Someone says that from the word automatic. Yes, I will say that computer performs tasks for you automatically. Yes, and one of the keys to succeeding and scaling is to be able to automate processes. Okay, if you can automate processes, then you can easily scale. All right. Yes, let's look at how automation helped our banking industry. I don't know about you, but previously, if you had to go to the bank, you will not be happy. Especially in my country, you will not be happy. Yes, I don't know whether you have any experience like that. If you want to go to certain banks, you wouldn't be happy because you will not have any opportunity to do any other thing for that day. Going to the bank means you are spending your day at the bank. Yes, because there were always queues and queues. Welcome, Olubukola. It's been a while. Welcome, Olubukola. Welcome, Abel. Welcome, Israel. Going to the bank means spending your whole day because you'll be in a long queue. There'll be heat in the banking hall and a whole lot. So who can tell me how automation helped the banking industry or the banking system? Who can tell me how automation helped the banking system? Who can tell me in the chat? How did automation help banking? Anybody? Okay, so someone says ATM. Okay, ATM. All right. So this ATM, what does it stand for? Okay, ATM, what does it stand for? I like ATM. What does ATM stand for? All right, thank you all for your contributions. I like the ATM part. What does ATM stand for? Who can tell us? All right, so someone said automated teller machine. All right, so ATM stands for automated teller machine. All right, so previously there were not enough tellers to serve us. And so going to the bank was a headache. So when the ATM came, now the whole process has been automated. Guess what? You can go to the bank at 2 a.m. I have gone to the bank at 2 a.m. before because of the ATM. Today, the ATMs we have, you can go to the ATM and deposit. I don't know if you have ever deposited through the ATM before. I have deposited through the ATM before. So you don't just withdraw through the ATM, you can deposit, you can withdraw. And so because of that, when you go to the bank, the queue is not as before. The ATM has solved a lot of problems because of the automated process. All right. And so automation is something that we should always be thinking about, because if you can automate something, then it means it doesn't require humans to be involved to get it to work. So in any business you are doing, if you can automate the business, then you are free. You see, you can build an e-commerce system that will automate the whole process of all the transactions. And when someone comes to your shop, the person selects what they want, the person adds to cart, the person makes payment, the person gets the delivery, everything automated. So with automation, it makes businesses able to scale, and it makes you to serve so many people at the same time. So automation is really good, and we should always think of automation. I don't know, but I heard of a supermarket in China, and this supermarket, there are no employees. There are no employees, zero, zero, zero. Then I think it was Japan rather, zero employees, zero employees. They intentionally designed the supermarket that way. So when you go to the supermarket, there's nobody there. You take what you want. There are systems and cameras and everything. When you are done, yes. When you are done, you make your payments. Everything is automated and you get out. So automation is really, really great. It helps us to be able to scale our businesses and do so much more. And if you have a lot of repetitive tasks that are so boring, Python is a tool you can use to automate. So Python is the best programming language for automation due to its simplicity and extensive library support. Because of the libraries that Python provides and how simple Python is, it becomes very easy to do automation with Python. So Python is really the best language to use for automation. So I'll talk about some key areas where we can use Python for automation. And one area is called task automation. Task automation. So when we say task automation, we are simply talking about automating repetitive tasks like renaming files, like I mentioned, which we'll be doing in class, like sending emails or scraping data from websites. So you see, web scraping itself is automation. Instead of gathering the data manually, you can write a script, and the script can visit a website and gather data for you. So our web scraping lesson is also under automation. Web scraping is an example of automation. It can be done in very, very simple ways for simple data, and it can be taken to a whole new level where it really, really does a great job of extracting data for you. Yeah, so the first project we'll be working on will be to rename files, because we want to start from the basics. So we'll use a simple Python module to do the renaming. And I'm so interested in how to send emails with Python. And when we get there, we are going to see how we can write Python code to connect to an SMTP server to send emails. Yes, and so in your webmaster class, you will learn all about SMTP servers and email servers and how to work with email. So those who have that understanding already, you see how we can use Python to connect to SMTP servers and send emails to multiple recipients using our Python code. Let me share some files with you that we'll be using for today's activities. And so once we get there, you will use that to write your code and do your assignment or task for today. So what I'm going to do right now is let me just share with you first. Let me share that with you first. All right, so I have 10 images here. It could have been 10,000, but because of time, I just chose 10 images. So these images are images that I downloaded, nature images. And the idea here is that we are going to use Python to rename all of them. So this is a task that we'll be doing in class in a few minutes. And if you look at the file names, you can see how the file names are. Usually when you use your phone or a camera to take pictures, you can see that it has names like this. I believe you are familiar with this type of naming. All right, so let's assume you've gone for a vacation or a program and you took a lot of pictures, but they all came this way and they are not meaningful. All right, and so you want to use Python to rename them. Wait a minute. Okay, so you can name them one by one yourself, but if there are so many, like 300, it will be difficult. So you can use Python to automate that. So by demonstrating with this, we are going to take automation from very, very simple tasks, and little by little, we will use it for some super important tasks. Yes, I mean, some high-end tasks. And so I'll be sharing this with you. Let me just zip this, compress it to a zip, and let me go ahead and put it in the chat for you. Let me put it in the chat for you. Hopefully the chat can attach. Okay, the chat is not attaching, so I'll share it on Google Drive and I'll give you the link like we did the last time. So let me just do that quickly. And I want you to use that to automate your Python files. So let me see. Let me just upload, file upload, and take this file, uploading. Okay, so let me add the permissions and share with you. So this is going to be your exercise so that you get a feel of how to do simple automation. In the next lesson, we'll take it to a whole new level and we will upgrade from there. So let me put this in the chat right now. So please download it. If you're able to download it, let me see Dan in the chat. If you're able to download it, type Dan in the chat for me. Then we can continue. All right, thank you. So let me share the screen again and we will continue. All right, so we are talking about certain tasks that you can automate, and you can automate a whole lot of things like deleting files, creating files, sending emails, web scraping. You can also automate data processing and analysis. You can automate data cleaning. For example, before you analyze data, there may be duplicates. You can write Python code using pandas to access the file and remove all duplicates. You see, some cells or some fields may have empty records. You can fill in all those empty records. You can even automate data visualization using Python. All right, so there are a whole lot of things you can automate, and you can even automate a pipeline. You can create a pipeline. Please type pipeline in the chat for me. You can even create a pipeline, okay, a data pipeline in the chat, which means that you have certain processes that the output of one process becomes the input of the next process, and the output of that one becomes the input of the next process, And so the whole pipeline is automated from start to the end, and the whole process is automated. So all of that can be done using Python. You can also automate web API. So we have web API automation, automating interactions with APIs using requests. Who remembers requests? Requests. We learned a lot about requests in our previous lessons. All right, thank you. And so you can automate interactions with APIs using requests. Example, pulling data from an API and saving it. All right, so you can automate the process of pulling data. This automation can be done on a daily basis. And when we talk about even scheduling, you can even let Python constantly run on your system, and it will perform its automated tasks on certain days. You can program it to work on certain days at certain times. All right. So even let's say your root phase studies, you can program that every day at so and so time, your system should open the root phase manager for you. All right. Or send you a reminder or do something for you. So you can schedule tasks. In automation, we have task scheduling, where you can schedule tasks to run on specific dates and time. So all of these things, once we get a feel of them, then we are really building a strong foundation in Python and really understanding how to use Python to achieve all of that. You can also do automation with testing. If you write code and you want to test it, so we have something called unit tests. You can perform unit tests with Python, or you can use a PyTest library to also automate software testing. Yeah, so after software is developed, we usually test software using code, and we automate the testing process to make sure that every component of the application is tested automatically using scripts. So this is very powerful. And last but not the least, you can also automate machine learning and AI workflows. You can automate model training. All right, we use Python to train our machine learning models and our AI models, and you can also automate it. You can automate the model training, the model evaluation, and the deployment. You can automate them. And certain libraries in Python that we use for machine learning and deep learning, we have scikit-learn. Scikit-learn. Please type scikit-learn in the chat. If you are interested in data science, this is one of the most important libraries you will be learning, because this is what we use for the machine learning. Yes, scikit-learn. This is the machine learning library in Python. It's called scikit-learn. We also have TensorFlow and PyTorch for deep learning and for advanced things like neural networks and so much more. So as we are studying Python, we are going to be building a strong foundation step by step. And as we progress, you yourself, you will see that you are understanding Python and you are building mastery in the language. All right. So to take our first project, we'll be doing what is called task automation, like I previously talked about. And task automation with Python refers to using Python scripts to handle repetitive and time-consuming tasks automatically, reducing manual effort and increasing efficiency. One of the benefits of automation is that there is efficiency. All right, there is efficiency, there is speed, there's accuracy. Some things that you have to do manually, after you do it a number of times, you may even be tired. You may start making mistakes. But once you have written a script to do the automation, the script doesn't make mistakes. Once the script is correct, it will repeat the same task automatically a million times, if that is what you want, with the same level of efficiency and accuracy. All right. Now, for us to begin, we need to understand that these automation we talk about, there are libraries that are used for these automations. In our web scraping lesson, we use two libraries. I want you to tell me the names of those two libraries. So anyone here who remembers lesson 16 on web scraping, what were the libraries we used? Let me see in the chat. I want to see who can remember. Yeah, so the first person says beautiful soup. I knew you talk about the soup first. I knew you talk about the soup first. So we have beautiful soup and we also have requests. Or we have requests and we have beautiful soup. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Bernadine. We have requests. So this request library, don't forget it. You see how easy it is to use. Yeah, so in Python, as you use certain libraries for certain tasks and projects, you become used to them, you remember them. Now, what will happen when you are ready to use Python for real tasks or for real jobs or in your career or in your field to do real things, real world projects? What you are going to notice is that the Python knowledge that you are going to apply comes from little bits of concepts that you have gathered over time. All right. So the Python we are going to, or you are supposed to know, the knowledge comes from little lessons and concepts that you remember, little things like slicing. You remember slicing. You apply it in anything you are doing. Okay. When you need it, you apply it. All right. You remember indexing. You remember little things, all the simple methods you've been using. Okay. So as you keep using it to work on projects and to learn new things, what happens is that they will all come together. They will all come together to form that massive pool of knowledge and experience that you need for the field, because it's a language. You will not be asked that you need these particular words today. All right, it's a language. So as you keep using it bit by bit, a time will come you are going to remember them in pieces and you are going to put all of them together and you are going to use them to perform your important tasks. All right, so we have to understand that Python offers built-in and third-party libraries and modules that help automate tasks. So to do automation, we are going to use modules and libraries. Some modules are built in and some are third-party modules and libraries. For example, the request library, we had to install it. I hope you remember that. We had to install it. Okay, how do you install requests? Who can tell me how you can install requests if you want to extract data from websites? What is the command to install request? In your terminal, how do you install requests? Okay, so someone says pip install requests. Okay, you need to remember. So these are third-party libraries. Now, there is something called the Python standard library. So if you've not taken the lesson on libraries, you have to make sure you get there as soon as possible. Okay, because when you get to libraries, then you are now ready to explore Python in so many ways. Now, Python itself has a mother library that is called the Python standard library. Within that library, there are a lot of packages and there are a lot of modules within it. If you take our lesson on libraries, packages, and modules, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. And so if you don't understand those terminologies, just refer to that lesson and you will get them. All right. Now, inside the Python standard library, there are a lot of packages and modules. So this is why we say that some of them are built in. In Python, we have one mother library and we have a lot of modules in the library. So there are certain automated tasks that for you to do with Python, you can use a built-in module or a third-party library. For example, this module called OS, it's built-in. So we are going to use it for today's work. So we are not going to do any installation today. We are just going to use a built-in module for that. We remember requests. These are some of the key modules for automation. We remember we have one called schedule. Schedule is powerful. This is the library you use to schedule events. You can say that every 5 minutes, this should happen. Or every day at so and so time, this should happen. Or every week at so and so time, this should happen. You can even set something and forget about it and say that every month, please send emails to all these people. You can write that and schedule it down. All right. And Python will go ahead and do it. This is so amazing. You see, sometimes when you are sending bulk emails, you can just dump the email addresses in the to or CC or BCC box and just send all at once. But one limitation with that is that you will not be able to personalize the messages. Okay. Instead of mention everybody's name, you can't do that in certain bulk messaging in your Gmail, for example. Okay. But with Python, you can do that. So you have a database or a list of names and email addresses, and you have the message. Even though the message is the same to everyone, at least you can input their personal information like their names. That is very, very helpful. And that makes the message very personal. You can input certain specific things about the email, or you can even customize a message for each and every person using automation. Okay, so we have one powerful library. It's called SMTP-lib. Please type that in the chat for me. SMTP-lib. That is the library we will be using in class to automate email sending. All right, and that is an interesting lesson I'm looking up to, and we will learn how to automate email sending. And if you've taken the Webmaster course, you learn a lot about SMTP, and you know what incoming servers, what outgoing servers are, and how to configure SMTP. There's another popular library called OpenPyXL whenever you want to work with Excel files. So this is another library you should watch out. And in case you want to do any automation with Excel files, you can use that particular library. But I'm so much thrilled by SMTP-lib, and that library allows you to do so much. Today, we are going to talk about OS. Please type OS in the chat for me. OS. So OS is a module. Yes, OS is a module. And if you take our lesson, if you are watching on the video, you can check our list of videos for a lesson called Modules, Packages, and Libraries. That will teach you a lot about what modules are, what packages are, and what libraries are. And I'm sure most of you have gotten there and you've taken that lesson already. So we are going to look at OS. And in our previous lesson on web scraping, we studied about requests. That same way, today we are studying about a different module. This is called OS. That is just the name. Now, this OS, what does it do? The OS module is a built-in module in Python, and it is used to interact with the operating system. You see that? OS is used to interact with the operating system. All right. So anytime you want to write Python code to interact with your computer's operating system, then you can use this module called OS. You know, in your operating system, you have your file explorer. You can explore your files. You can do a whole lot. If you want to do all of that you do on your computer with Python, then the module for that is OS. The good news is that OS is already installed. So you just import it and you use because it is built in. Now it performs system level operations such as creating, renaming, moving, and deleting files and directories. So just as we do file management, we create files, we rename files, we move files, we delete files, we do whatever to files and directories. OS is a module that has the ability to do that for you using your Python code. You see, as you advance in Python, you are going to remember, okay, I remember when we use request, and I remember the assignment I did on request. I was able to extract data from a website. Okay, I remember when we use OS. I remember when we use pandas. I remember when we use matplotlib. I remember when we use sklearn. You see scikit-learn. If you are using it in Python, we call it sklearn. All right. And so as you advance in Python, later when you see complicated Python code, it doesn't scare you anymore because you remember all of them. But to the beginner, when they see OS and they see requests, they are so confused. Import requests. Import from BS4, import beautiful soup. I mean, when a beginner sees this, they are going to be so confused. But because you've done some work with beautiful soup, with requests, with OS, it is going to be familiar and easy to understand. And that is how it will be for you to build your experience with Python, become a master of Python, and use Python for advanced things like AI, for machine learning, and for so much more. So this OS module, it is used to perform system level operations on files and directories. To begin, you need to set up your environment. And the good news is that the OS module is a built-in module and it's part of Python standard library. So you don't need to install anything additional to use it once Python is installed and working on your system. All right. So if you want to be sure that Python is working, let me share my screen now so that we see. If you want to be sure that Python is working on your system, all you have to do is to go to your terminal and type Python -- version. And once you do this, you are going to see that you have Python installed. So if you have Python installed, then you don't have to worry because you have OS. So let's go to PyCharm now and let's use OS. So I'm going to close our previous projects with request, and I'm going to right click on the project folder, new, and Python file. And this project, we are going to call it renaming files or renaming photos.py. So we are going to rename photos. So this is the work we are going to do today. And this is an automation work. And automation can be done at a very simple level and also at a very large scale and complex level. So today's project will be a simple one, and we will continue to automate in about 2 to 3 lessons, and we'll build a lot of mastery when it comes to automating important tasks. All right. Now, so project 1 is renaming files with Python, automation project 1. Now, to our job here, let me give a task. So this is what all of us are going to do. So the code I'm going to write for us to automate this particular task, you are all going to do it. All right. One thing that experienced developers or programmers have learned is that you never learn coding watching. Watching can let you see what is possible. For you to have the skills, you have to do something. All right. So you don't get the skills by watching. The watching will enlighten you to know what is possible, but you need to type to acquire the skill. So what we are doing now, you are also going to do it. And this is going to be our assignment as well. So you do it and you send it to assignment@reachafrica.org. We are going to automate file naming. All right, so the first thing we know to do is to import, and this everyone knows. So we are going to import our OS module. So import the OS module, and we say import OS. That's it. Import OS. All right. So once you import OS, now you are ready to do the automation. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to let us go through the code we need. And as we go through the code, I'm going to give this as an assignment. And you are also going to do exactly the same thing. Please, if you are following, let me see that I am following. I am following. I'm following. Please, if you are following, let me know. Let me know. Let me know. So Emeka is always following. Thank you, Hilary. Thank you, Frida, Robley, Mike, Paul, Sylvia, Leon. Thank you. All right. So now, after we import OS, the next thing is to define the folder where the images are stored. So the images you downloaded, you need to extract them and put them in a folder somewhere. To make it easier to locate it, you can put it on Drive D or closer somewhere in Drive C. If you put it in My Documents, you need to go through a lot of folders to reach it because the path, you need to define the path. So to make the path shorter, you can just put it in Drive D in a folder, and you have it. And if you are watching this video and you don't have the files, just download 10 images from the internet and put them in a folder and do the same work. All right. So to define the path, we are going to create a variable and we just put the path in it. All right. So we've not started doing any complex thing. What we are doing right now is just to create a variable for the path because OS wants us to give the path to it. So to create a variable, so we are going to say define a variable or define the, how did you put it here? It says define the folder where the images are stored. Simple. So define the folder or path where the images are stored. Simple. So let's call it folder path. And this is just a variable, okay? So you put it as a string. So this is just a string. So mine, I think I've stored mine at Drive D, colon, slash. Then in Drive D, I think it is in projects, okay? Then in project, I have Pi, okay? Then in Pi, I have nature. You see, once you see it here, then it means it's there. That's it. This is my path. All right. So you write your path here. This does not mean you should type what I have typed. I am telling you where I stored mine on Drive D, in projects, in Pi, and in nature photos. Please, do you understand this? Do you understand this path? Do you understand it? If you understand it, let me know. If you are confused, let me know. So if you understand this, do you understand this? All right, so Robley definitely got it. All right, but I didn't get it. All right, fine. So there are two things we've done right now. We imported OS and we just created a folder and a string with the path to the photos. So let me confirm if the path is right. So over here on my system, I think my photos, okay. My photos are, sorry, let me make my path. I think I made some changes. And let me show you what I'm doing right now so that you understand it. Please watch this. So when I came, I think I undid something because you can see that all my projects here, I use lowercase and I use underscore for compound names. I need to do it that same way because when you are given a path, make sure that the path is not broken. So this is important. If you create a folder, make sure there is no space because the space will break the link. So whenever you are doing a project on the web, you remember this from the web lesson, web class, you need to make sure there are no spaces in your folder names. So I'm going to name this nature underscore photos in lowercase. Okay. So when I open it, I have the images here. So the path I use, you can see that I'm right. So over here, when you come here, I don't know if my screen is visible. Okay. My screen visible? All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. So over here, you can see Drive D, you can see project, you can see Pi nature photos. And when I hit enter, I see the photo. So I'm right. So that's my path. What I want you to understand is that this will not be your path. So you create your own path. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do, which is very, very simple, is that we are going to create an empty list, sorry, an empty list to store the image files. All right. Now, we are going to work on the images, okay? Right now, we've created a variable with a path name where OS can find the images. Now, we want to create a list where we will extract the existing or the current file names of the images into that list, and then we will start renaming them, okay? So I'm just going to say image files, and I'm going to create an empty list. Who can tell me how to create an empty list? Let me see that in the chat. Who can tell me how to create an empty list? So I'm checking. Okay, so Emeka just told us. So you type open and close square bracket like this. Now, this is important. This is important because there are a lot of projects that you are going to be creating an empty list and you are going to be adding to the lists with time. You see, when we took a lesson on list, we learned how to add to the list. Who can remember the method we used to add to a list? How do you add to a list in Python? What is the method? Okay, so this simple concept, you need to remember them. All right, so someone says it is what dot append. You see, these are the things that are meaningful in Python. These are the things that you'll be using tomorrow. You remember that if you have a list, you can add to it with dot append. This dot append is very important. You'll be using it. Okay. And most of the time, you are going to create projects where you start with an empty list, you do certain things, and you start adding to the list one by one. You start adding to the list one by one. So that's what we are going to do today. So at the end of the day, we are going to pick the file names and we are going to put them in this particular list. All right. Now, the next thing here is simple. We are going to create a loop. Okay. Create a loop to make it simple, let's say loop through all the items in the folder. All right. Okay. So what we are going to do right now, please pay attention. We are going to create a loop that will visit our folder path and get to that folder and loop through everything in that folder. You see, how can you do that? Because of the module we are using, it is possible. We can perform system level operations on files. So we are going to loop through all the files. Let me just put files instead of items. Loop through all the files. And whenever we are looping through, we will take the file name and put it on our list or in our list. That is how come we are going to get all the list. And after we have the list, then we will start working on it. Remember, for you to achieve what you want, you need to set the processes to be right, okay? So far, all that we've done is to write just 3 lines of code, import OS, create the path, create an empty list, and now we are going to write a loop. All right. What is a keyword to create a loop? If you want to loop, what is a keyword to create a loop? What's the first keyword to create a loop? All right, thank you. Thank you. You all remember. So we are going to write for. And you know that if you want to create a loop, you need to create a variable after the for. Let's call the variable file. So this file is a variable we are creating to create a loop. Remember your lesson on loops. The variable will hold the current state or the current item in the iteration. So in your current iteration, the item will be stored in your variable. In your next iteration, you are done with the previous one, so the new one will also be stored there. All right, so for file in, now watch what I'm going to do now. I'm going to introduce one particular method here. That will be the first technical thing we have done. This method is this, is OS. We are going to call our OS, the OS module. And we are going to say dot list dial, list directory. All right, please type what I have typed here. Okay. This is a method, so you call the OS dot list dial. Please write this for me. This is like the only technical thing we have learned today. Write it in the chat for me, please. Write it in the chat for me. All right, right. Thank you so much. So if you have written this, then you have done well, because this is actually the key to achieving what we want to do. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So today, this is the only technical thing we have introduced. And as you start this project, you're also going to type that particular thing. So we have this particular module here, and this is a method within it. Now, this method, what it does is that it is going to create a list of all the items in the path. So what is going to happen here is I'm going to put folder path here. This is how we use it. This is how we use it. So please take note. When you are creating a loop, you remember that you need to begin with for, and your into will come. And you have to create a variable. This variable is anything that you create. We chose to call it file. Now, the only new thing we are learning today is os.listDial out of this particular OS here. Now, watch this. Before typing anything about OS, you saw that this was faded. But now that we type os.listDial, I can see that it has come to life because we have now used the OS. Then you put in your folder path here. What this is going to do is that it is going to scan through the folder path. What is in the folder path? The folder path is what we provided here, and we know that there are photos in there. It is going to scan through all of them, and it is going to create a list. All right? It is going to create what? A list. It is going to create a list. And after it creates the list, then you can start using the list, okay? I'm going to mess up what I've done just to demonstrate something, and then I'll come back to it, okay? Let me come here and clear everything here and say file underscore list equals to this code. All right, okay, so this is correct Python code, right? I'm just trying to tell you what this one does. So file underscore list equals to this, and we provided a folder path. Let's go ahead and print our file underscore list. Let's run it and see what will happen. Oh, look at what we are getting. Please tell me what is happening here. If you can see my screen, what is happening? What is happening? What is happening? Someone should tell me. Okay, thank you, Emeka. You are always fast. Who else? What are you seeing? Tell me what you are seeing right now. What you are seeing? Okay, you are seeing image names. Okay, who else? A list of the image. Thank you. We have a list of the image of the file image names. Thank you very much. So look at what this code did. You see, I just created another variable and then I called this method here and I gave it our path. So the job of this list dial is that it will visit your path and every file in it will be captured and will be used to create a Python list. Wow. So you created a Python list and stored the list here, and I printed the list, and we can see that all the images or all the files, it actually captured all of them. So this can even make our work easy. We already have a list. Okay, we already have a list. So our work is easy. If I leave you here, I'm sure you can even do the renaming. Because if you have a list and you have to rename your list, you have to go and remember your Python lesson on lists. How can I rename this one? Let me see if anybody can remember Python. Let me not print it yet. Let me not print it yet. Who can rename the first item in the list here? Please, I've deviated from the project. I'll come back, okay? Who can rename the first item in the list? What will you do? Remember your lesson on lists. You see, when you are learning Python, you learn simple things. When it's time to work on projects, you use those simple things. No, you are not going to append. You are just renaming the items in the list. Who can remember how to rename a list? Thank you, Robly. So Robly says file list index 0 equal to, let's call this you remember your lesson on apples? All right. So now let's go ahead and print our list again. So let's print the whole list again. Now, when you run this again, you will see that, oh, the first one is called Apple. All right. So now that OS module has gone into your system directory and has pulled all the files for you, okay, now you can manipulate the file name. The only thing you have to learn how to do is to visit the directory again and implement the renaming, okay? That is what we have not gotten to. But when it comes to renaming the items, we can. All of us can do that right now. So I'm going to go back to what I had before. And I think I created a loop. And this loop, I said for file in this. All right. Then in your loop, you need to have a colon here. Everybody remembers that. Now, please remember this. Anytime you are creating a loop, you know that we only loop through sequence. So this has become a sequence. A sequence is any Python object that has multiple values, or any variable with multiple items. It's called a sequence. So everything I've highlighted here has now become one sequence. So if you see the code written like this, don't let it frighten you. This you understand already. For file in this sequence, and I printed the sequence for you to see. Let's go ahead and let's do something interesting here. Let's do something interesting here. What we are going to do is that we are going to check how the files are named. We are going to check how they are named. You will notice that we have img underscore 1234, img underscore 1235, img underscore 1236, img under, okay. So what we want to do right now is to create a loop to loop through every file and we are going to we can do very simple, okay? We can do this in a very simple way. All right, let me do this in a simple way. Later I'll show you the long way. In a simple way, we know that this is already a list, okay? So what we can do is to just give this to this, and we are done with step 2. We are saying that this should be stored here. This is good enough. Now, the code I was going to write, what it would have done was to look through multiple files and look for the file name. If it matches what is here, and if it is a JPEG, then it should add it to the list. I just noticed that it's unnecessary at this point. Right now, it's unnecessary. So let's just keep it simple, because I was imagining you going through mixed files and only picking out the images. So I was going to write code to look for the images among them and put it in our list. But for our first lesson, it is not necessary. So I'm just dumping everything here over here. And to be sure, let me just print it and check image files. If we will get the images, we have them. So that's it. We have this. What I'm going to do now is simple. I'm going to sort the images alphabetically. And if I can sort them alphabetically, then it will help me to rename them alphabetically. Again, if that sorting is not necessary, you can also ignore that step. All right, but I'm going to do that. So if you have a list also has a method called sort. So that's all. So now with this, I can sort them. So when I print now, when I print image files right now, you can see that after I print, they are sorted in from the least to the greatest, all right? But then this sorting can also be ignored if it is not necessary. Sorry. Sometimes you want to sort, other times you don't want to sort. But this sorting will make sure that the images are named the right way. All right. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is to implement the renaming, not just in my Python code, but to visit the directory and implement the renaming. All right. It's going to implement it. All right. So what we can do is that we are going to now create a loop. So we are going to create a loop to rename each file in the list. All right. We are now going to create a loop to rename each file in the list. And after we do that, we are now going to call OS again and tell OS to rename the files. All right, so we will say that for, and this, you can do this in different ways, okay? You can do this in different ways. Now that we have sorted them, let's try this way. For file in image files, you see, this will work because this is a list. Okay, for file in image files, then what we can do is to create a variable called old name, and this old name is okay. So once we are creating the loop, old name will just be the same as what? The file, right? But I want to achieve, all right, so let me explain something before we move on. At the end of the day, I want to rename the files like this. So the new name at the end of the day is going to be nature photo 1.jpg for the first one. The second one is going to be nature photo 2. Third one will be nature photo 3. Fourth one will be nature photo 4, and so on. All right. So all right. So to do that, let me modify this code a little bit. And instead of saying for file in this, I'm going to use numbers to do this. So to use numbers, I'm going to use a range, okay? So for I in range, and when it comes to range, we studied about range in our loops lesson. Range is also a sequence from 0 to wherever you want it to get to. So either you have a list, a tuple, set, or any sequence like a string, you can just loop over those sequences. But then if you want to have a loop of numbers, you can also use the range. I'm sure you remember that in our lesson. If you don't remember, visit the lesson on what we call loops. All right. Now, what I want to achieve right now is that I want to get the total number of items in the list, this list. How can I get a total number of items in this list? What Python code can I write to get the total number of items? Remember, we have a list here, and we stored everything in that list. And I just want the number of items. Which function can I use to get the len function? Thank you, Bernardine. You are so smart. So over here, I'm going to say len of what? Len of image files. So what len is going to do is going to give me a number starting from 0. So this I is going to be 0. So every code here is just going to turn into a number. So for I in range, I have 10. So we are going to get 10 starting from 0 to 9. All right. So the old name, what we are going to put here is going to be called image files of index I. This is going to be the old name. And what this means is that we have our list and we are using this iterator as an index to go through the list. So because we are going to run a loop, we are going to use the I to access the index one after the other. So for the first iteration, the old name will be stored here, and the new name we want to create, we are going to give it our own new name. All right. So I can use F strings. Okay. You can use F strings anytime you want to write a string. You don't need print before you use F strings. Okay. So I say I'm going to call it nature photo underscore. Then I create a variable I plus 1. All right. So this is just a file name. This I, remember the I is 0. So the new name of the first image is going to be I plus 1. So it's going to be nature photo 1. So I've just created this. The next thing I'm going to do is to create the old path. Okay, because I'm going to call OS to visit the folder right now. The old path, I'm going to introduce another method from OS. It's called os.path.join. os.path.join. Then I'm going to provide our folder path that we provided before. And then I'm going to provide the old name. All right, this is another line of technical code that is super important. So right now you can see that I am creating a loop. And this loop is going to pick the new name and it is going to visit the path and append the new name onto it. And OS is going to write it onto the hard drive for us. So I'm going to pick the old path. Then I'll also create what we call the new path. The new path is going to use the same os.path.join. Then we are going to use the same folder path and then the new name. What does this mean? It means that the path that we have here at the end of the day is going to be slash the new name, nature photos 1.jpg. So this becomes a new path. So the new path I'm giving to OS, I am adding the file name to it. That's all I'm doing now. I'm adding the file name to it. This is why we are giving the new name over here and we pick the old name. Because if you want to do the renaming, you need to tell the method that will do that the previous name and the new name. This is why we are doing this. Now, this particular method I've created here, what it does is that it allows the operating system to use the correct path and the correct slashes within the name. All right. So you can see that here we are using these slashes here. It is going to ensure that the path contains all the right slashes and every component of the path will be joined together. That is why we call this. All right. So the OS, we called OS twice. We said os.listDir and then os.path.join. That's all we've done. We used it to create the old path and the new path. Now we are almost there. We'll be done with the program very soon. So the next OS we are going to call is going to be os.rename. Now we are going to tell OS to do the renaming. And you provide the old path, comma, the new path. What this means is that the old path will have the file name added to it, and the new path will also have the file name added to it. OS, which is a module that can access your operating system, will use its rename module method, and the rename method needs 2 arguments. Tell me the old and the new, and I'll do the job for you. All right, so our work is done. Let's print an output here and say that, can use a string and say that the file Let me put colon here. The file, we can say old path or old name has been renamed to new name. All right. So this is just an output so that when the loop runs, we know that it worked. Then at the end of the day, I'll say print and say renaming complete. Okay. All right. So this is actually very simple code. Very simple code. And all that it did was to import the OS, the new module we are learning about today. And then we created a variable and provided a path. Then we extracted all the files into a list with this method here. We sorted it, and then we created a loop. This loop is where the rename begins, and the most important line of code is this line. We called OS and said os.rename. But OS needs two arguments, so we need to provide the old path and the new path. Now the old path use a method called .path.join to join all the components of the path. And you see that when I put my mouse on it, you can see that it is showing right here all the components of the path together, and it added this old name, which is a file name, to it. Okay, so the only part you need to understand from your previous Python lessons is how to use a range to loop through a particular number, okay, or from 0 to that particular number. So that's the range from 0 to that particular number. We use the len to extract just the number. And we use the concept of indexing because this is 0 when it starts. So if you call image files index 0, you are going to get the first one. If I write that here, I'm going to see it already. You get the first one. So I wrote it in the loop. It got the first one. And then I created a new name, called it nature photo underscore I, which is 0 plus 1. So the first one is going to be 1. And then I renamed it, and then the loop will keep running until the end of the range, 10 times. So on every iteration, I will become incremented. So from 0, it's going to be 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, up to the last one. So we are done. Let me run the code now and see if Python will really rename the files. So I have placed the code and the folder here side by side, and let's see if it will work. All right. So let's pay attention to the file names. I'm going to point to this file and I'm going to ask if anybody. Okay, who can tell me what is here? I just want to be sure you can see it. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Let me add the JPEG here. You're right. Thank you. Thank you. So we need to add the JPEG here. Very important. All right. Please tell me if you can see this. I just want to know if you can see, so that I'll run this and we will all see how it will work. What do you see here? If you can see it. Okay. All right. Okay, good. Thank you. So now I'm going to right click this and I'll say run renaming photos. And if there's no error in my code, listen, if there are 10,000 images here, they are all going to run right now. See, you see that they have all been renamed just now. Can you see that they've all been renamed? So this is the automation, and it can happen very, very fast. And you can rename 10,000 files using your Python code. So you can see that this file has been renamed to this, and everything worked perfectly. I only used 10, so you will not feel the power of automation. If I had used 1,000, then you would have said that, wow. Yes. So, yes, that's all. So the work is done. This is just a basic lesson. Okay. This is just a basic lesson, step 1 in automation. Now, next lesson, we'll move to step 2. All right. If you want to rename with different names, just be creative about it. Okay. You know that it's possible. All right. Just be creative about it. So this is just to cement the idea of renaming. All you have to do is to make sure that your list and your new name bears what you gave. I mean, what you want to name it. Okay. So you can see that what I gave here is this, and that is what has happened. You can just be creative about what you will give in the loop, and it will do that. This is just a seed to what is possible. You can be creative and you can rename it with whatever you want. All right. Okay. So that is a lesson, and this is the introduction to automation with Python. I can't wait for the lesson where we write Python code to send email. All right. So what we've done today is to explore a new Python module. It's a module because it's a single file. I'm not calling it a library because a library is a big collection of packages and files and so much. This is just a simple file. Yes. Yes. So just be creative with your Python string manipulation, and you can name it however you want. All right. So this is to let us see that this module has allowed us to be able to create a list out of the files. And you see that now that we have the list, we can even be intelligent about it. We can be intelligent about it. We have a list, you have a list. You can do whatever you want with a list. You can manipulate the list. And you have the file names. You can use it to do anything complex. So this is just the seed. You can build upon it to do whatever you want. And this is just to loop through the list. And on every iteration, we set the name and we call OS to rename again. But for OS to rename, we need to use the path.join to make sure that it has the correct path for the operating system. You see, if you are using a different operating system, the way the file path is may be different. OS.path.join will make sure that it has the right path for your operating system. Remember, OS is able to access the operating system. That is why it's important to use this particular method here to create a full list. So this is our first lesson, Introduction to Automation with Python. And I want to know if you have learned something from this lesson. Let me know in the chat if you've learned something from this lesson. This is just a seed. In our next lesson, we'll take you to another level and you understand. Yeah, so Nyapandi, thank you so much. Yes, this is good. I have learned something. Yes, I've changed a lot of things and we've enlightened ourselves. Okay, we've enlightened ourselves. Yes, so we are learning what is possible, and if we keep exploring Python this way, you will start seeing how Python can be used in your day-to-day life. Yes, so this is something Python can do for you. It's possible. You can delete files, you can create files, you can manage files anyhow. All right. Before I thank you for this lesson, this is your project work, your assignment. Please rename all the files using Python and send your work to assignments@retaafrica.org. If there's anyone here who can type the email for me, assignments@retaafrica.org. Not .com, .org. Some of you like sending to .com. Please send to .org. All right, so this is your assignment. Work on this project. And if you want to be creative with yours, go ahead and be creative. I'll check your work and I will see the creativity you will implement in this particular project. Again, you learn Python by writing code and by solving problems and working on projects. You don't learn by watching. You only learn maybe 20% when you watch, but when you write the code, it helps. Thank you all very much, and this is where I end the lesson. We'll meet again in our next lesson, and I will see you. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and we'll meet again next time. I wish you the best. Bye-bye.